Hello everybody, it's the Moolies. It's been a few weeks since Baldur's Gate 3 has been announced, and I must say I've been really bloody hyped for the game. Now, in the background, I am playing Divinity Original Sin 2. I must admit that before seeing the gameplay footage, I actually never gotten the game, because you know the amount of money that you have is finite, and what I often do if I'm not entirely sure about whatever I will not I'll enjoy a game, I'll ask friends and who, uh, who have knowledge, who have played the game, and ask for their opinion. For this particular game, I asked someone who did not enjoy the game, and rather than ask some other person, I went like, oh, okay, I guess I'll pass up on it. So, yeah, I must admit it was kind of stupid, but I am catching up. I'm in 4 weeks' time. I've played the game for 111 hours, and I'm still bloody stuck in Act 2. So, yeah, I'm definitely getting my money's worth out of the game. I must admit. Now, I was very hyped for the game, but I wanted to get something off of my chest first, because it annoyed me to hell and bloody back. And that was well, the reaction from give or take half of the community. And everyone is entitled to their opinion, nothing wrong with that. But uh, uh, let's see, how do I put this? I have a Dutch proverb in my head, but I'm not entirely sure how to translate it to English. Alright, so I can't exactly find a perfect analogy for this, but basically what I'm thinking about is a Zijnzeiger, which basically is someone who has such a sour personality that he would have to piss vinegar. Basically, I couldn't really find a something similar in English, but yeah, basically that. It came across that people didn't like the game just because they didn't like the game, and I mean, yeah, like I said, if you haven't, everyone's entitled to the opinion. If you don't like it, that's fine. But I couldn't really find any clear reason why people didn't like it. So there were some people who voiced certain things, but the only thing that I saw people say is that they how did they voice this? That they didn't get the feel that it was a Baldur's Gate game, and that they felt it was a Divinity Original Sin game. And well, the game is made on the Divinity 4 engine, I believe, and it's made by the people who made the Divinity games, so that sort of makes sense. I have seen other people complain about that they were missing something, and that was the combat system, because the Baldur's Gate games had you could pause the game or activate it in a turn to go turn based, but I think the standard setting for the game was real time, and people were lamenting that the game did not have the real time combat system. And because it didn't have that combat system, it wasn't a Baldur's Gate game. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, again, if people don't think this is the game for them, or they don't feel what is a Baldur's Gate game, I mean, they're entitled to their opinion. I just don't see the complaint here. Baldur's Gate 1 is, I think, from 1998. Baldur's Gate 2 was from 2000. Do people not want the innovations from the last 20 years introduced into the third installment for the game? Yeah, I don't know. And to prevent myself from ranting about this another 5 minutes, I'll just shut up about it now. Now, I have written down my thoughts and fears for the game, and I figured it would be fun to share this with you. And I'll start with the fears that I have, and I'll discuss them in the order that I wrote them down. I really bloody fear that Some aspects about the game will be dumbed down, and I came across this idea when they showed you the inventory, or basically the UI that shows your inventory, your backpack. It shows your character sheet and your spellbook, and that's all done in a single screen. And I don't know why, but I really got the fear that things would be really dumbed down. And I, if I'd have to explain my own thought, I can't really do that because I have no idea why I got this fear for, in my head from watching the screen. But yeah, there we go. There was a very light focus on the story so far. And granted, what they showed you with the gameplay footage was a really small part of the game. And halfway through that, they actually died during the tutorial, basically. So what they showed you in the game was really only a tiny fraction of the game. So makes sense that it's really light on story, but yeah, I'm not quite sure why I wrote that down because, like I just said, considering the scope of what they shown, it makes sense. But yeah, I'm afraid that they won't do too much with languages. Every race in D&D comes with its own language. Elves speak Elvish, dwarves speak Dwarvish, Dragonborn speak Draconic, alongside Common, and maybe it's tied to the same point as the previous one, that because of what they showed us in for our scope, that it hasn't come up yet. But I hope they do something with the languages, but I'm not entirely sure if they will. Next point. They have confirmed that level 10 would be the max for the game. Let me backtrack here. They said that I think for the campaign it would be level 10 would be the max. And D&D the maximum level that you can be is 20. And honestly, at that point you are a demigod, so maybe because of how much quests and enemies you face, it's just not possible to reach level 20. It could also be possible, but I do hope that they give you the opportunity to become 20 in the game, even if it's just not in the start campaign, because that would be fucking awesome. I'll give you that. Especially because some of the higher levels of spells that you can do, like stuff like Meteor Rain, I think they will be able to show that into the game so bloody nicely. I want to see that shit. Now, and here's the granddaddy of things that I fear. I heard I'm not sure if it's confirmed or not, but I heard a rumor that Minsk was going to be in the game, and that he was going to be a petrified statue that you would find in Baldur's Gate, and I really hope that they do not do that. Not because I don't like the character, because I really bloody love the character, but because I fear that they can't do the character justice. Because in Baldur's Gate 1 Enhanced Edition, they which has been written after Siege of Dragonspear, which has been written many years after 1 and 2 have been published. Minsk is also there, but there's something really off about him. His voice doesn't really, it doesn't work. I don't know if they used the same voice actor or not. If they didn't, that really explains it. And if they did, I don't know what's wrong. Maybe he was not able to catch the character, if you will. I don't know. But he really sounds like the discount brother of Binsk or something like that. It's not the same person. It's almost like a sort of uncanny valley version of Minsk. I think uncanny valley is more like visual, but you hear the voice and it sort of sounds like him, but it's you can plainly hear that it's not. It's just off. And the same thing you notice in the dialogues with him, which is kind of why I just hope that they, just like the character rest, let him be. I think everyone unanimously loves him. and he has 2 games to shine. Should just let the character rest. And these guys are perfectly capable of making up their own fun characters. Please let the character rest and do not give us discount Minsk again. Because I think that's a shame, and they really don't need to. Now this next one I can explain a little bit more closely why I don't want it into game, and that is I sincerely hope that they do not put any crafting in Baldur's Gate 3. And well, one of the reasons why is because holy bloody shit, it sucks up so much of my game time. I am not even bloody kidding. I think if like 10% of my full game time is dicking about with the crafting system, that's probably gonna be pretty damn accurate. And seriously, I cannot come across a single item and feel that I need to pick this up because I can potentially use this for crafting, and I am already a bloody fucking hoarder as is, and this is only making things so much worse. And in D&D 5th edition, there's a severe distinction between, craftsmen and adventurers. Now, adventurers can, be proficient with like blacksmithing tools and stuff like that, and they can do some crafting in their off times, but it's not their profession, and specifically the DM manual has rules and guidelines for letting players make their own items. It is possible, and if you have a cool ass GM, he will allow you to do these things, but that's more of like a exception than a rule, Craftsmen are people who are crafting, and adventurers are people who are, adventuring. And crafting items, I mean, it's cool if they would allow you to do these things, but please do not do it in the same scope of rigidity with the River of St. Judas. Holy fucking shit, that is going to be a detriment to the game, I feel. Alright, so reactions. From what I think they say this in the Q&A at the end of the video, but that reactions are done automatically, and I pray to God that they do not do that. Because to give you a simple example, you are playing a wizard, and there is an enemy fighter, let's say an orc or a goblin, in melee contact with you, and he buggers off and to go harass someone else, and it provokes an attack of opportunity. So now, say this is the first reaction that gets triggered this turn, then your wizard would do an attack of opportunity. But melee attacks are not really a wizard's forte. However, some things like casting a counterspell or shield to protect yourself from incoming damage, that would be something that you would want to use your reaction for. But if your reactions are done automatically and you have no control over what happens, then that takes out a huge amount of control out of your character and makes some spells simply useless. Because if you have no control over what you do with your reaction, then why bother taking those spells, So I bloody hope that I do not make reactions done automatically. Now, this next one might be a little bit of a placeholder, I don't know, but I noticed that a ranged character, I think that the vampire spawn that they showed the game footage of, he had a bow and he gained a pin down skill. Now, this could be just either a placeholder or a leftover from their the Divinity Original Sin engine, I don't know. But it's basically an ability that is an ability in D&D 5th Ed. I mean, if you pick up a bow, you get the mighty ability to fire arrows at enemies. You don't get a pin down ability. Now, it could add something to the game, and I think it's just a leftover from the Divinity engine. And it doesn't need to be a detriment, but it just feels off to me. and specifically because they mentioned that they are staying very, what's it called, true to the 5th edition rule set, and you don't have that sort of abilities in the tabletop game. So I'm kind of like, wait, what is this? At the end of the day, it wouldn't, break the game for me or something, but maybe that is one of the reasons why people think that it feels too much like Divinity Original Sin, I guess. Because again, it is built on their engine, so it makes sense that it will have some similar aspects to the previous games. But yeah, I don't know. I also don't see the use for it, I guess, is why it seems off to me. But anyway, and to the last point, I fear that the world, that the game world will be too small, because they mentioned that you start the game with the crashed ship to the, I think they said the east of Baldur's Gate, and then for the story you travel to Baldur's Gate, and then, excuse me, after that they don't really specify what happens. And what I've seen, Jesus Christ, what I've seen so far from Divinity Original Sin 2 is how big the game world is not that super big. I mean, it's not small either, don't get me wrong, but when you compare it to Baldur's Gate 1, Baldur's Gate 2, the scope is so many times bigger that I just hope that they just haven't really revealed what the rest of the games will be. But yeah, that was the last of the fears that I wrote down. Now it's time to talk about the things that I did like. So let's start with advantage and disadvantage. I really liked how they made that a key feature of the game, because in the tabletop, one of the few ways in which you can drastically increase your chance of success is by getting advantage, and one of the few things which you can be at a major disadvantage is, well, by having disadvantage. But I really like that they also translated that to the video game. I feel it is an integral part of 5th edition, honestly. And the only other edition that I played is 3.5. And back there it wasn't really a feature. But the DM that we had at the time would sometimes give us like a few points of a bonus or a penalty. But advantage and disadvantage, I feel, is a more one-size-fits-all scenario, I guess. It is an easy concept to grasp, and sometimes it can be quite easy to get. And if you can give disadvantage to your opponent, then holy crap, then he's very unlikely to be powerful in combat. The next part that I really liked is that the NPCs that they shown, and specifically during the character creation where you can see the perks about every background as such, is that every character has their own little quirk, their own little backstory that they're working with, their own history that is chasing them, and I really like that. And they also did this in the Divinity Original Sin 2, and like I said earlier, I haven't played the first game, so maybe they also did that as well. But I really like that every character is unique, and you get the sense that they really do have a backstory, and I appreciate that. And now moving from the backstory of the pre-generated characters to your own, I really appreciate how the character creation is done in Baldur's Gate 3. It looks like they managed to make the character creation fast, in depth, and you don't lose any of the aspects that the pen and paper character creation would, which I think is a pretty neat feat, to be honest. And yeah, I think that the most time of character creation is probably going to go into the appearance of your character. I mean, because you got your race selection, you got your background selection, and what class you have, and that's kind of it. Yet these things really tell a lot about your character, you know. So I feel that they did this very nicely in a very streamlined fashion, and I like that. Now, another point that I really like is that very stereotypical D&D monsters are going to be in Baldur's Gate 3. Things like mind flayers. Um, yeah, well, mind flayers is really a big one because that is really stereotypical of D&D. But intellect devourers that you see in the tutorial, or very early on in the tutorial, I think it's the first monsters that you encounter, are also a pretty iconic D&D monster, and I gotta say I quite like that as well, especially I don't think we've ever had this very nicely detailed D&D monsters on screen before, so and I really appreciate that. Alright, what is the next point? Alright, yeah. The amount of actions that you have on your turn, and the great amount of freedom to move around and use the terrain and scenery to your advantage. I mean, holy shit! I think we were going to be able to do things here that we either never thought about in the pen and paper, or never got around to actually try, and I think that is pretty damn amazing. Alright. Yeah, this kind of goes against one of the fears that I had, and it's about the menu, where your inventory, your character sheet, and your spellbook is. And I said earlier that I greatly feared it, and I kind of did, because I feared that it would be dumbed down. But this other point is just that I think it looks really bloody streamlined, and it looks so sleek, and I do have the idea that a lot of thought and trial and error went into this, so kudos to that. Now, what I like is that outside of combat you can turn on a turn-based system, and this will really greatly aid with like sneaking about, trying to talk with people who are running away from you, and God knows I had the Pet Pal perk during Divinity Original Sin 2, and especially tiny creatures, which are really hard to click on, and when they're actively walking away from you, it's really bloody difficult and annoying to talk to them. So it's nice that we actually get some way to like freeze time so we can fucking talk to them. And other than that, like I said, it greatly aids with things like stealth and setting up a pre-combat positioning for your people, I feel. Especially when you're trying to engage a combat against moving enemies. Now, that a lot of non-combat spells will have a use. That's also something I really like. I think during the presentation they showed Featherfall, and they mentioned that there is going to be a lot of verticality into the game. So that makes sure that a lot of spells in the game that might not always see the right amount of use will actually have a use in the game, and it's something that I can appreciate. Something I really liked, something that I did in game as well, is that they mentioned the grease spell and that you can put it in fire, and that's something I've actively used in combat and also used in other games like Dragon Age Origins, for example, where that is a pretty nice combination. So it's nice that that's going to be into the game as well. But although honestly, it's combinations like that are really present in the Divinity Original Sin 2. So it makes sense that they would keep such sort of combinations into any future games that they would work on, because it as a concept just works really well. What I also liked is that the AI that they showed in action, well, they had a little bit where it was actually glitching up, but aside from that, it showed itself to be, intelligent enough to go for the squishy spellcaster first, to kill downed enemies, and to give itself advantage when it has an opportunity to do so. And that gives me a nice feeling that the enemies that we will fight will, put up a good fight, and those are the interesting fights, when you're up against odds and the enemy is just stacking those odds even more against you and play smart, and that means for more interesting engagements and more interesting gameplay. So, that they managed to show that in such a short gameplay session is baffling to me. I think they did so very nicely, and I think it was just over an hour or something. More game companies should do something like this, Just a shame that most of them are, not capable of doing that, I guess. All right, stealth, and this I really liked. They showed you how you can how stealth works, and already they gave you hints about how you could apply it in combat for yourself, or how you could go about it and stuff like that. And for some classes like rogues specifically, a good stealth system is very important. Well, it's not important, you can do without it. But on the other hand, if you have a good stealth system that really plays to your character and to your strengths. So it's nice that they took the time to develop a good system for that. And the last point that I really liked about the game is how bloody brutal it is. I mean, holy shit. They made this game to be so brutal that they bloody died during the fucking tutorial. They might tone it down a little bit for newer players to allow them to leave the tutorial or something like that. I don't know. It's all, I think, pre-alpha what they showed us, or maybe it's alpha. I'm not entirely sure what the state of the game was when they showed it. But holy shit, this is gonna be one fucking amazing game, and I can't wait to play it. So yeah, with that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening to my ramblings about a game that's going to be released later on this year. And yeah, there was a demo, and I'll see you guys next time.